The untouched plate of lemon herb chicken had been sitting on that corner booth table for 783 nights straight. Every single Friday. Same booth, same order, same heartbreak. Damian Cross wasn't crazy. Everyone in town whispered it anyway. But he kept coming back like clockwork, a 32-year-old man handcuffed to a memory nobody else could see. Then one freezing November night, a broke artist named Elena Brooks walked through those diner doors and did something nobody else had dared to do in 2 years. She sat down across from the ghost. That's when everything Damian thought he knew about grief started falling apart. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and let's get started. The fluorescent lights inside Maple Hearth Diner buzzed with that particular hum that made you feel like you'd stepped back into 1987 and never quite found your way out. The black and white checkered floor was scuffed in all the usual places. The vinyl booth seats cracked just enough to pinch the back of your thighs if you sat wrong, and the smell of burnt coffee mixed with bacon grease had seeped so deep into the walls that even a bulldozer probably couldn't get it out. Damian Cross sat in the last booth by the window, the one tucked into the corner where the heating vent rattled and the streetlight outside flickered every 12 seconds like it had arrhythmia. He didn't look up when the door chimed. Didn't flinch when cold air rushed in and made the couple at the counter complain. He just sat there with his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago, staring at the empty plate across from him. Lemon herb chicken. Extra time. No vegetables, because Mira always said vegetables at a diner were a waste of stomach space. The waitress, Bonnie, 60-something with reading glasses on a beaded chain and the kind of smoker's voice that sounded like gravel in a blender, refilled his coffee without asking. She'd stopped asking 2 years ago. "You good tonight, honey?" Bonnie's question came out soft, careful, like she was talking to a dog that might bite or run. Damian nodded once. He wasn't good. Hadn't been good since the accident. But good was what you said when people asked questions they didn't really want answered. Bonnie lingered for half a second, her pen tapping against her order pad, then walked away. The regulars knew better than to stare directly at him, but Damian could feel their eyes anyway. The couple at the counter, the truck driver in the booth near the bathrooms. Even the cook, Marco, who occasionally peeked through the kitchen window like Damian was some kind of science experiment gone wrong. Crazy bastard, they probably thought, still ordering food for a dead woman. Let them think it. Damian didn't owe anyone an explanation. His phone buzzed on the table. A text from Mrs. Kowalski, the neighbor who watched Luna on Friday nights. "She's asleep. Ate all her dinner. Don't rush." Damian typed back a quick thanks and pocketed the phone. Luna, 6 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with dinosaurs, and convinced that eating broccoli would turn her into a tree. She was the only reason he still woke up in the morning. The only reason he hadn't completely disappeared into the black hole that opened up the night Mira's car skidded off Route 9 in the rain. He reached for his cheeseburger, medium rare, pickles on the side, same order for 10 years. But his hands just sat there on the table, not moving. The burger was cold now anyway. Everything was always cold. That's when the door chimed again. Damian didn't look up. Why would he? It was Friday night in a nowhere town where nothing ever happened except the same people eating the same meals and complaining about the same weather. But then he heard it. Shit, 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 shit. The voice was young, female, out of breath, frustrated in a way that sounded like the universe had just personally declared war on her and wasn't planning to take prisoners. Damian's eyes flicked up despite himself. The woman standing near the door looked like she'd been dragged backward through a November wind tunnel. Mid-20s, maybe. Dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail that was losing the fight against gravity. Oversized thrift store coat, ripped jeans, boots that had seen better decades. She had a canvas messenger bag slung across her body, bulging with what looked like sketchbooks, and her face was flushed red from cold or panic or both. She was staring at her phone like it had just delivered the worst news in human history. "You okay, sweetie?" Bonnie called from behind the counter. The woman looked up, startled, like she'd forgotten other people existed. No, I missed the last bus." She laughed, but it came out sharp and bitter. "Of course I did. Because why wouldn't I?" Bonnie made a sympathetic noise. "Where are you headed?" "Riverside." The woman shoved her phone into her coat pocket. "I've got an early shift tomorrow and no car. And apparently the universe thinks I need to learn some kind of lesson about punctuality, so here we are. Riverside's 12 miles. Bonnie frowned. You got someone to call? The woman's jaw tightened. No. That single word landed heavy. It wasn't no, I don't have anyone nearby. It was no, I don't have anyone, period. Bonnie glanced at the clock. Next bus doesn't come through until 6 a.m. Great. The woman dragged a hand down her face. Fantastic. Love that for me. Damian watched her stand there, weighing options that clearly didn't exist. He should look away. Should go back to staring at the lemon herb chicken that nobody was ever going to eat. Should finish his cold burger, leave cash on the table, and drive home to check on Luna like he did every single Friday for the past 783 nights. But something about the way this woman stood there, shoulders tight, chin up, refusing to cry even though she clearly wanted to, made him pause. She reminded him of Mira, not in looks. Mira had been blonde, bright-eyed, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make it feel warmer just by existing. This woman looked like she'd been through a few rounds with life and lost most of them. But the fight in her, that stubborn, pissed-off refusal to collapse. That was Mira. You want coffee while you figure it out? Bonnie offered. The woman hesitated, probably calculating whether she could afford it. Yeah, sure, coffee sounds good. She slid into a booth near the front, 3 booths away from Damian, close enough that he could still hear her muttering to herself. Something about should have taken the earlier bus, and stupid, stupid, stupid. Damian looked back at the untouched plate of chicken. Leave it alone, he told himself, not your problem. Mira used to say he had a bad habit of picking up strays, broken lawnmowers, abandoned furniture on curbs, people who looked like they needed help but were too proud to ask for it. You've got a hero complex, she'd teased once, poking him in the ribs while they painted the nursery yellow. One of these days you're going to bring home a whole person, and I'm going to have to explain to them that we don't have a guest room. Damian had laughed, kissed her forehead, told her he'd try to restrain himself. That was 4 months before Luna was born, 2 years before the accident. He pulled a 20 from his wallet and set it on the table, grabbed his jacket, stood up, just go home. But his feet didn't walk toward the door. They walked toward the booth where the woman sat hunched over a cup of coffee, scrolling through her phone like she was searching for answers that didn't exist. He stopped at the edge of her table, cleared his throat. She looked up, surprised. Up close, he could see faint smudges of charcoal or pencil lead on her fingers. Artist, maybe. Her eyes were brown, tired, and deeply suspicious. Yeah, she said. Damian's brain stalled. He hadn't thought this through. What was he supposed to say? Hi, I'm the town weirdo who orders dinner for ghosts. Want a ride? You need a lift? The words came out rougher than he intended. Her eyebrows went up. What? Riverside. I'm heading that direction. A lie. He lived in the opposite direction. But 12 miles wasn't far, and Mrs. Kowalski had said not to rush. The woman stared at him like he'd just offered to sell her a kidney. I don't know you. Fair. And you're a guy. Also fair. Offering a ride to a stranger at night. Yep. She leaned back, arms crossed. That's either really nice or really creepy, and I can't tell which. Damian almost smiled. Almost. Ask Bonnie. I'm here every Friday. She'll tell you I'm mostly harmless. Mostly? I'm bad at small talk and I don't listen to the radio, if that counts as harmful. The woman's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. She looked over at Bonnie, who was watching the whole interaction with poorly concealed interest. Bonnie, the woman called. This guy a serial killer? Bonnie snorted. Honey, Damian couldn't kill a spider without feeling guilty. You're safe. The woman looked back at Damian, chewing the inside of her cheek. He could see her doing the math. 12-mile walk in the freezing cold versus getting in a car with a stranger. What's the catch? She finally asked. No catch? Nobody offers free rides without a catch. I do. Why? Because you look like you've had a shit day, and I've had worse. Damian shrugged. And because I've got a daughter at home who I'd hope someone would help if she ever got stranded. That did it. Something shifted in the woman's expression. Not trust, exactly, but a willingness to take the risk. Fine. She drained her coffee in one gulp and stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. But I'm texting my friend your license plate number, and if you try anything weird, I've got pepper spray and a really good scream. Noted. They walked out into the cold together. The parking lot was mostly empty except for Damian's truck, a beat-up Ford F-150 that had seen better decades but refused to die, and a sedan that probably belonged to the couple at the counter. The woman paused when she saw the truck. That's yours? Yep. It's held together with duct tape and prayer. Mostly duct tape. Damian unlocked the passenger door. Prayer hasn't worked in a while. She climbed in, still wary, still ready to bolt. Damian got in on the driver's side and started the engine. The heater coughed to life, blowing cold air that would eventually turn warm in about 10 minutes. Where in Riverside? He asked. Oak Street, near the old theater. Damian knew it. He'd done some restoration work on a house 2 blocks over last year. He pulled out of the parking lot and onto the empty highway, headlights cutting through the dark. For a while, neither of them spoke. The woman kept her hand on the door handle, ready to jump if needed. Damian kept his eyes on the road, the white lines blurring past. Then she said, I'm Elena. Damian. The waitress called you Damian. I wasn't eavesdropping. It's fine. More silence. The kind that wasn't comfortable but wasn't hostile either. Just 2 people existing in the same space, not sure what to do with each other. So, Elena said eventually, you really come to that diner every Friday? Yeah. For how long? 2 years. She waited, clearly expecting more. When he didn't offer it, she tried a different angle. You always order 2 meals? Damian's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Yeah. That's a thing. It's a thing. Elena nodded slowly, like she was trying to piece together a puzzle she didn't have all the pieces to. The chicken, the one nobody eats, that's for someone? Damian didn't answer. Couldn't. His throat had closed up the way it always did when people got too close to the truth. Elena must have sensed it because she backed off. Sorry, not my business. It's fine. She stopped. Started again. I'm good at asking questions I shouldn't ask. Bad habit. Where'd you pick that up? Art school. Before I dropped out. She laughed, dry and self-deprecating. Turns out I'm great at drawing things, and terrible at everything else required to not be broke and miserable. You draw. Used to. Now I work at a warehouse packing boxes and pretend I'm going to get back into it someday. Elena stared out the window at the dark fields rushing past. That's the dream, right? Do what you love, except nobody tells you what to do when what you love doesn't pay rent. Damian knew that feeling. Not about art. About everything. About waking up and putting one foot in front of the other because stopping wasn't an option, even when every cell in your body wanted to just lie down and quit. You still draw? He asked. Sometimes, when I can't sleep. She pulled a small sketchbook from her bag, flipped it open. Even in the dim light from the dashboard, Damian could see the lines. A cityscape, a woman sitting alone on a bench, a bird mid-flight. These are good, he said. They're fine. Elena closed the book quickly, like she regretted showing him. Not good enough to matter. Says who? Says everyone who didn't buy them. Says the gallery that rejected my portfolio. Says my bank account. She shoved the book back into her bag. But hey, at least I'm consistent. Failing at the same thing for 5 years straight takes dedication. Damian almost smiled again. This woman had a way of talking about devastating things like they were punchlines. He recognized it. He did the same thing. They drove past the Riverside Town Limits sign. Old theater coming up on the left. Oak Street 2 blocks ahead. Here? Damian asked, slowing down. Yeah, 3rd house on the right. The one with the porch light out. He pulled up to the curb. The house was small, sagging a little, the kind of rental that landlords forgot about. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out right away. Thanks, she said. For the ride. I wasn't sure if I was going to freeze to death or get murdered tonight, so this is a nice middle option. Any time. She hesitated, hand on the door handle. The diner. You really go every Friday? Every Friday. Same booth? Same booth. Elena looked at him for a long moment, and Damian had the uncomfortable feeling that she could see straight through him, see the cracks he worked so hard to keep hidden, see the part of him that was still sitting in a hospital waiting room 2 years ago, waiting for news that never came. "That chicken," she said quietly. "The one you don't eat. I think I get it." Damian's chest tightened. "Yeah? Yeah?" She opened the door, cold air rushing in. "See you around, Damian." She climbed out, shut the door, and walked up the cracked sidewalk to her house. Damian waited until she was inside, until the porch light flickered on. She must have changed the bulb before he pulled away. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. He turned on the radio just to fill the silence, then turned it off again 30 seconds later. When he got home, Mrs. Kowalski was waiting on the porch, wrapped in a puffy coat that made her look like a marshmallow. "She went down easy tonight," Mrs. Kowalski said, handing him the house key. "Asked about you, though. Wanted to know why you always leave on Fridays." Damian unlocked the front door. "What'd you tell her?" "That you've got an important appointment. She's 6, Damian. She doesn't need the whole story yet." "Yeah." Mrs. Kowalski studied him with the kind of look that elderly Polish women had perfected over generations. The look that said, "I know you're lying to yourself, and I'm not going to push, but I'm also not going to pretend everything's fine." "You eat tonight?" she asked. "Yeah." Liar. "I had coffee." "Coffee isn't food." She sighed, patted his arm. "There's leftover brisket in your fridge. Heat it up. You're too skinny." Damian nodded, knowing he wouldn't eat it. Mrs. Kowalski knew it too, but they both played along. After she left, Damian locked the door and stood in the dark hallway for a long moment. The house was quiet. Luna's nightlight glowed soft blue from her bedroom upstairs. The thermostat hummed. Everything was exactly the way it should be, except it wasn't. He climbed the stairs, careful to avoid the creaky third step, and pushed open Luna's door. She was sprawled across her bed like a starfish, one arm dangling off the edge, her stuffed triceratops clutched to her chest. Her blonde hair, Mira's hair, was tangled across the pillow. Damian stood there watching her breathe. In, out, in, out. This was the only thing that mattered, keeping her safe, keeping her alive, making sure she never felt the kind of emptiness that had swallowed him whole. He pulled the blanket up over her shoulders, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Love you, monster." Luna stirred, mumbled something about pterodactyls, and rolled over. Damian went to his own room, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the framed photo on the nightstand. Mira, laughing, holding newborn Luna in the hospital. Her eyes bright, her smile so wide it looked like it might split her face in half. He picked up the frame, ran his thumb over the glass. "Met someone tonight," he said to the photo. To Mira, to the empty room. "She sat in your booth, well, near it. Asked about the chicken." The photo didn't answer, never did. "I gave her a ride home, 12 miles. She's an artist, or was. She's—" He stopped. What was he doing? Talking to a picture like it could hear him, like it changed anything. He set the frame back down, lay back on the bed fully clothed, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he'd get up. Make Luna breakfast. Drop her at school. Go to the job site and spend 8 hours tearing out rotten drywall and replacing subfloors. Come home. Make dinner. Help with homework. Read 3 chapters of whatever dinosaur book Luna was obsessed with this week. Put her to bed. Sit alone in the dark. Same routine. Every day. For 2 years. It was fine. He was fine. Except he kept thinking about the woman in the diner. Elena. The way she'd looked at the untouched plate of chicken and said, "I think I get it." Most people didn't get it. They wanted him to move on, to stop coming to the diner, to pack up Mira's things and let her go. But Elena hadn't said any of that. She'd just understood. Damian closed his eyes, told himself to stop thinking about it, about her. It didn't matter. She was just a stranger he'd given a ride to. He'd probably never see her again. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. Bolchomk. The next Friday came the way Fridays always did. Slow, inevitable, dragging its feet through the week until it finally arrived and Damian could stop pretending he was okay. He dropped Luna off at Mrs. Kowalski's at 6:30, drove to Maple Hearth, parked in the same spot, walked through the same door. Bonnie waved from behind the counter. "Usual, honey?" "Yeah." He slid into the corner booth, checked his phone, stared out the window at the flickering streetlight. The diner was busier than last week. A family with 3 kids near the door. A couple of teenagers horsing around in the booth by the jukebox. An old man reading a newspaper and eating pie. Damian ordered his cheeseburger, ordered the lemon herb chicken, waited. The food came. He ate mechanically, not tasting anything. The chicken sat untouched across from him, steam rising into the air before dissipating into nothing. He was halfway through his burger when the door chimed. Elena walked in. Damian's hand froze halfway to his mouth. She stood near the entrance, scanning the room like she wasn't sure what she was looking for. She wasn't wearing the oversized coat tonight, just a fitted jacket, jeans, boots. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders. She looked different, less frantic, more intentional. Their eyes met. Elena hesitated, then walked over. "Hey," she said. "Hey. This is weird, right?" She gestured vaguely at the diner. "Me being here?" "Little bit. I was in the area. Remembered you said Fridays." She shoved her hands into her jacket pockets. "Thought I'd grab some of that pie Bonnie keeps talking about." Damian knew a lie when he heard one. Riverside was 12 miles away. Nobody drove 12 miles for pie. But he didn't call her on it. "You want to sit?" The words came out before he could stop them. Elena blinked. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She slid into the booth across from him, right where the untouched plate of chicken sat. For a second, Damian's chest seized up. That was Mira's side. Nobody sat on Mira's side. But Elena was already there, and asking her to move felt impossible. She looked at the plate of chicken. "This the famous one?" "Yeah." "Lemon herb?" "Extra time." Elena nodded slowly. "Can I ask you something?" "Depends." "Why do you keep ordering it?" Damian set his burger down, wiped his hands on a napkin. This was the question he'd been avoiding for 2 years. The one Bonnie never asked. The one Mrs. Kowalski skirted around. The one Luna was still too young to understand. He should deflect, change the subject, tell Elena it was none of her business. Instead, he said, "My wife died 2 years ago." Elena went still. "I'm sorry. Car accident, black ice, Route 9. The words came out flat, rehearsed. He'd said them so many times they didn't feel real anymore. This was her favorite place. Every Friday night, we'd come here. She always ordered the lemon herb chicken, always complained that it was too dry, but ordered it anyway. And you keep coming back." I promised her I wouldn't let this place become something sad. Elena looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Damian's head snapped up. "What?" "I said it's dumb." Elena leaned back, arms crossed. "You're sitting here alone ordering food nobody eats, torturing yourself every single week, and calling it a promise? That's not honoring her, that's punishing yourself." Anger flared hot in Damian's chest. "You don't know anything about it." "You're right, I don't." Elena met his eyes, unflinching. "But I know what it looks like when someone's drowning and pretending they're swimming. I spent 3 years doing the same thing after I dropped out of school. Different method, same result." "This is nothing like, isn't it?" She leaned forward. "Let me guess. You wake up, take care of your kid, go to work, come home, repeat. You don't see friends, don't date, don't do anything except survive because doing more than that feels like betraying her memory. Am I close?" Damian's jaw clenched. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, wanted to tell her to mind her own business, but he couldn't because she was right. "She wouldn't want this," Elena said quietly. "Your wife, whatever her name was, Mira. Mira wouldn't want you sitting in this diner every Friday staring at cold chicken. She'd want you to live." "I am living." "No, you're existing. There's a difference." Damian pushed his plate away, pulled out his wallet, started counting out bills. "I should go." "Damian, thanks for the psychology lesson." He threw cash on the table and stood up. "Enjoy your pie." He made it 3 steps before Elena said, "I watched my mom do the same thing." Damian stopped. "After my dad left," Elena continued, voice steady, "she just shut down. Stopped painting, stopped going out, stopped being anything except a ghost in her own house. I was 12. I watched her disappear for 6 years until she finally woke up one day and realized she'd missed my entire adolescence." Damian turned around slowly. Elena was still sitting in the booth, staring at the untouched chicken. "I'm not saying it to be cruel. I'm saying it because I recognize it, and because if one person had told my mom the truth back then, that grief was eating her alive, maybe things would have turned out different. So what are you saying? I'm saying that plate of chicken isn't a promise. It's a cage. Elena looked up at him. And you're the only one with the key. The diner had gone quiet. Not actually quiet. The family with kids was still loud. The jukebox was still playing, but in Damian's head, everything had gone silent. He sat back down. I don't know how to stop, he said. I know. She was, his voice cracked. She was everything, and now she's gone, and I don't know how to be a person without her. Elena reached across the table, hesitated, then put her hand over his. Her hand was warm, real, solid. You don't have to figure it out tonight, she said. You just have to stop pretending you're fine. Damian looked down at their hands, his rough and scarred from work, hers smudged with charcoal. Why do you care? He asked. Elena smiled, sad and small. Because somebody should. You said, Kiểm tra số thu nào chưa đủ viết tiếp cho đủ 6.500 đến 7.000 từ cho tôi. Kiểm tra số từ nếu chưa đủ viết tiếp cho đủ 6.500 đến 7.000 từ cho tôi 13 giờ 56 phút. Claude responded, I need to count the current word count and continue writing to reach the 6,500 to 7,000 word target. I need to count the current word count and continue writing to reach the 6,500 to 7,000 word target. Let me count the existing content and then continue the story. The current part 1 is approximately 5,100 words. I need to add about 1,400 to 1,900 more words to meet the requirement. Let me continue the story seamlessly. They sat there in silence for a while, Elena's hand still resting on top of his. The gesture should have felt awkward. They barely knew each other, but somehow it didn't. It felt like the first honest moment Damian had experienced in 2 years. Bonnie appeared at the table, coffee pot in hand, taking in the scene with barely concealed curiosity. You two want refills? Elena pulled her hand back and Damian felt the absence of it immediately. Yeah, Elena said. And that pie you keep bragging about. What kind? Apple today, fresh this morning. Bonnie filled both their mugs, her eyes darting between them like she was watching a tennis match. You want ice cream with that? Is that even a question? Bonnie grinned and disappeared back toward the kitchen. Elena wrapped both hands around her coffee mug, and Damian noticed the faint tremor in her fingers. She was nervous. All that bravado, all those direct questions. She'd been nervous the whole time. I didn't mean to ambush you, Elena said, not looking at him. I really was in the area. 12 miles away is in the area? I'm a very generous person with geography. She took a sip of coffee, made a face. This tastes like it's been sitting since breakfast. It probably has. And you still drink it? Habit. Elena shook her head, but she was almost smiling. You've got terrible habits, you know that? I've been told. Bonnie returned with a slice of apple pie that looked like it had been cut by someone who didn't believe in measuring. The ice cream was already melting into the crust, pooling around the edges. Elena picked up her fork and took a bite, and her eyes went wide. Okay, that's actually obscene. She took another bite. How is diner pie this good? Marco's grandmother's recipe, Bonnie said proudly, refilling the coffee of the old man with the newspaper. He won't share it, says it dies with him. Tell Marco I'd commit minor crimes for this recipe. Bonnie laughed, a sound like rattling coins, and moved on to another table. Elena ate her pie with the kind of focus Damian associated with Luna attacking chicken nuggets. No pretense, no small bites, just genuine enjoyment of something simple. So, she said between mouthfuls, you mentioned a daughter? Damian tensed reflexively. Luna was the most important thing in his world, and talking about her with strangers felt like exposing a raw nerve. But Elena had just sat across from him and told him his entire life was a cage, so maybe they were past the stranger stage. Luna. She's 6. That's a pretty name. Mira picked it, said it meant moon in Spanish, and she wanted our daughter to be something people looked up at in wonder. Damian stared into his coffee. I thought it was cheesy. She told me I had no poetry in my soul. Elena smiled. She sounds like she was funny. She was. The words came easier now. She'd tell terrible jokes, the kind that only work if you're 4 years old or very drunk, and she'd laugh at them before she even got to the punchline. He could picture it so clearly. Mira doubled over, gasping for air, tears streaming down her face while he stood there completely straight-faced. Luna does the same thing. Inherits the laugh, but not the timing. You miss her. Every second of every day. Elena set down her fork, the pie half finished. Can I tell you something? Go ahead. I don't think you're crazy for coming here. I think you're loyal, and I think the world could use more people who don't just forget the ones they love because it's easier. Damian looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. The tired eyes that had seen too much. The hands that created beauty even when everything else was falling apart. The stubborn set of her jaw that said she'd been knocked down plenty but kept getting back up. Why'd you really come back tonight? He asked. Elena picked at the pie crust with her fork. Honestly? Because for the first time in a long time, I met someone who seemed more broken than me. And I guess I wanted to make sure you were okay. That's a terrible reason. I've got a lot of those. She pushed the plate toward him. Want some? I'm good. Your loss. They sat there as the diner hummed around them. The family with 3 kids finally left, the father looking exhausted. The teenagers fed quarters into the jukebox, and some song from the 80s started playing. Something about holding on and not giving up. The old man folded his newspaper, left exact change on the table, and shuffled out into the night. So what do you do? Elena asked. During the week, I mean. Besides survive. I restore houses. Old ones, mostly. The kind that people have given up on. That's poetic. It's practical. Houses don't talk back. Elena laughed. Fair. I work in a warehouse. 10 hours a day, packing boxes full of things people don't need, but ordered at 2 in the morning anyway. Sounds soul-crushing. It is. But it pays rent and doesn't require me to explain why I wasted 4 years studying art only to abandon it. You didn't abandon it. You're just taking a break. A 3-year break. Still counts. Elena looked at him, something shifting in her expression. You're nicer than you pretend to be, you know that? Don't let it get around. I've got a reputation. As what? Town weirdo who orders ghost dinners. Oh, that reputation's solid. I'm not worried about it. They both smiled, and for a moment the weight that Damian carried everywhere, the crushing, suffocating weight that made every breath feel like work, lifted just slightly. Bonnie came by with the check. Damian reached for it, but Elena snatched it first. My pie, my bill, she said. I'm not letting you pay. Too late. Already decided. She pulled cash from her pocket, crumpled bills that looked like they'd been through a washing machine, and set them on the table. Besides, you gave me a ride last week. This makes us even. A ride is not the same as Damian. She looked at him with those tired, knowing eyes. Let me have this one, okay? He wanted to argue, wanted to insist, but something in her voice told him this mattered more than money. Okay. Elena stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Same time next week? The question caught him off guard. You're coming back? Maybe, if I feel like more pie. She started toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Or maybe I just want to make sure you're still here. I'm always here on Fridays. I know, that's what worries me. She walked out, and Damian sat there watching her through the window as she got into a beat-up Honda Civic that looked one breakdown away from retirement. She pulled out of the parking lot, taillights disappearing into the dark. Damian looked at the plate of lemon herb chicken, still untouched, now cold. He picked up his phone and typed out a text to Mrs. Kowalski. Be home in 20. Sorry for the delay. Her response came immediately. No rush. Luna's drawing pictures of dinosaurs in space. We're fine. Damian set the phone down and signaled Bonnie for the check for his meal. When she brought it over, she had that look on her face again. The knowing one. So, Bonnie said, drawing out the word. That the girl from last week? Yeah. She's got guts sitting in that booth. She doesn't know any better. Or maybe she knows exactly what she's doing. Bonnie tapped her pen against the check. You gonna see her again? Don't know. Liar. Bonnie winked and walked away before Damian could respond. He left cash on the table, enough to cover the meal and a generous tip, and headed for the door. His hand was on the handle when he paused, turned around, and looked back at the corner booth. The plate of chicken sat there under the fluorescent lights, looking exactly the way it had for 784 nights. Tomorrow would be 785. And for the first time in 2 years, Damian wasn't sure if he wanted to reach 786. Mods. The drive home was different. The roads looked the same, the streetlights flickered in the same pattern, the highway stretched out, empty and dark like always. But something had shifted. Something small and barely noticeable, like the first crack in a dam before everything breaks loose. When Damian pulled into his driveway, Mrs. Kowalski was already on the porch with her marshmallow coat and her knowing eyes. "Good night?" she asked as he climbed out of the truck. "Different night." "Different how?" Damian locked the truck, shoved his hands in his pockets. "Someone sat in Mira's booth." Mrs. Kowalski went very still. "And?" "And I didn't ask her to leave." "Well," Mrs. Kowalski smiled, soft and sad and hopeful all at once. "That's something, isn't it?" "I don't know what it is." "That's okay. You don't have to know yet." She patted his arm the way she always did and handed him his keys. "Luna's asleep. Wanted to wait up for you, but crashed around 8:30. She drew you something. It's on the fridge." "Thanks." Mrs. Kowalski started down the porch steps, then paused. "Damian?" "Yeah?" "It's okay to let people in, even when it feels like betrayal, especially then." She walked away before he could respond, disappearing into the house next door. Damian went inside. The house was warm, quiet, lived in. He hung his jacket on the hook by the door, kicked off his boots, and walked into the kitchen. Luna's drawing was front and center on the fridge, held up by a magnet shaped like a stegosaurus. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small, standing under what might have been the sun or possibly an explosion. Luna's artistic skills were still developing. Written in crayon at the bottom, Daddy and me and Miss Kowalski. Damian stared at it for a long time. 3 figures? Not 2. Luna had stopped drawing Mira about 6 months ago. At first, every picture had 4 figures, then 3. Now just the people who were still here. He wasn't sure if that was healthy or heartbreaking, maybe both. Damian climbed the stairs, avoided the creaky 3rd step, and pushed open Luna's door. She was sprawled sideways across her bed, one leg hanging off the edge, her stuffed triceratops on the floor. Her hair was a blonde tangle across her face. He picked up the triceratops, tucked it under her arm, pulled the blanket up over her shoulders. "Love you, monster," he whispered. Luna stirred, mumbled something that sounded like pancakes, and went still again. Damian stood there watching her breathe. Alive. Safe. Completely unaware that her father was slowly suffocating under the weight of keeping everything together. He left her room and went to his own, sat on the edge of the bed, picked up the framed photo of Mira from the nightstand. "Someone sat in your seat tonight," he said to the picture. "Her name's Elena. She called me out on all my bullshit and then bought her own pie. I think you would have liked her." The photo smiled back, frozen in time, forever 29, forever happy, forever gone. "She told me this," he gestured vaguely at everything, "is a cage, and she's probably right. But I don't know how to open the door. I don't know how to do this without you." Silence. "Luna drew a picture today. 3 people, not 4. His voice cracked. "She's forgetting you. Not all the way. Not yet. But the memories are fading, and I can't stop it, and I don't know if I should even try." More silence. "I'm tired, Mira. I'm so fucking tired." Damian set the photo down, lay back on the bed fully clothed, stared at the ceiling and listened to the house settling around him. Tomorrow he'd get up, make breakfast, drop Luna at school, go tear apart someone else's broken house and try to put it back together. Come home, make dinner, read about dinosaurs, put his daughter to bed, sit alone in the dark. Same routine, every day, for 2 more years, for 10 more years, for however long it took until Luna was grown and gone, and he was just a lonely old man eating cold cheeseburgers in corner booths. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, "What if you didn't? What if next Friday he sat in a different booth? What if he ordered something besides lemon herb chicken? What if he let someone sit across from him and actually talked instead of drowning in silence?" Damian closed his eyes. The voice was so quiet he could barely hear it. But it was there. And for the first time in 784 nights, he didn't try to silence it. He just listened. The following Friday, Damian woke up at 5:43 in the morning with Luna's foot in his face. Somehow, during the night, she'd migrated from her bedroom into his, climbed into bed, and positioned herself perpendicular across the mattress like a tiny, aggressive starfish. Her stuffed triceratops was wedged under his shoulder blade. Luna. He gently moved her foot away from his nose. Monster, you've got your own bed. She didn't wake up, just mumbled something about velociraptors and rolled over, taking all the blankets with her. Damian gave up and got out of bed. The house was cold. The thermostat had dropped to 58 overnight because he kept forgetting to fix the timer, and his lower back ached from sleeping at a weird angle. He pulled on a sweatshirt and padded downstairs to start coffee. The kitchen window showed the first gray light of dawn creeping over the backyard. The garden Mira had planted was completely overgrown now, choked with weeds and dead vines. He'd meant to clean it up, had been meaning to for 2 years, just never found the time or the stomach for it. The coffee maker gurgled to life. Damian leaned against the counter and checked his phone. 3 messages from the contractor he was working with on the Morrison house renovation. 2 spam calls. 1 text from Mrs. Kowalski asking if he needed her tonight. He typed back, "Yeah, same time. Thanks." Then he opened his messages and stared at the blank screen for a full minute before typing something he immediately regretted. "Hey, it's Damian. From the diner." He deleted it. That was stupid. He didn't even have Elena's number. How would he have gotten her number? Except he did have it, because last Friday before she left, she'd written it on a napkin and shoved it across the table with a quick, "In case you ever need someone to tell you you're being an idiot again." He'd put the napkin in his wallet and tried to forget about it. Now he pulled it out, stared at the numbers scrawled in blue pen, and felt like an absolute moron. What was he supposed to say? "Thanks for ambushing me last week. Want to do it again?" He shoved the napkin back in his wallet and drank his coffee black and too hot, scalding the roof of his mouth. By 6:30, Luna was awake and demanding pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, which Damian did not know how to make. They settled on regular round pancakes that she spent 20 minutes cutting into vaguely dinosaur-adjacent shapes while syrup pooled across her plate. "Mrs. Kowalski says you met a lady," Luna announced through a mouthful of pancake. Damian paused mid-sip of his coffee. "Mrs. Kowalski talks too much." "Is she your girlfriend?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I just met her." "So?" Luna dragged a pancake piece through the syrup lake. "Tommy in my class has a girlfriend and he just met her last week. Tommy's 6. So? That's different." "How?" Damian set down his mug. "Eat your breakfast, monster." "You didn't answer." "I'm answering by not answering." Luna considered this, decided it was acceptable, and went back to massacring her pancakes. Damian cleaned up the kitchen while she ate, loading the dishwasher and wiping down counters, trying not to think about the napkin in his wallet or the fact that tonight was Friday and he had no idea if Elena would show up again. Probably not. Why would she? She'd said her piece, told him he was living in a cage, mission accomplished, no reason to come back, except she'd said same time next week like it was already decided. Damian scrubbed a pan harder than necessary. "Daddy?" Luna's voice was small. He turned around. She was sitting at the table with syrup on her chin, looking at him with those wide blue eyes, Mira's eyes, that could crack him open faster than anything else in the world. "What's up, monster? Do you still love Mommy?" The pan clattered into the sink. Damian stood there, hands dripping soapy water, trying to figure out how to answer a question that shouldn't be this hard. "Yeah," he finally said. "I do. But she's not here." "I know." "Mrs. Kowalski says Mommy's watching us from somewhere nice." Damian grabbed a dish towel and dried his hands slowly, buying time. He'd never been good at these conversations. Mira had always handled the big questions, the complicated feelings, the moments when Luna needed more than just a dad. She needed someone who knew how to explain the unexplainable. "What do you think?" he asked. Luna swung her legs under the table. "I think maybe she's on the moon." "The moon? Because that's my name. So maybe that's where she is." Looking down, Damian's throat closed up. He crossed the kitchen, pulled Luna out of her chair, and hugged her tight enough that she squeaked. "Can't. Breathe. He loosened his grip but didn't let go. Yeah, monster. Maybe she's on the moon. Luna wrapped her sticky syrup hands around his neck. I don't remember what she sounds like anymore. I know. Does that make me bad? No. Damian pulled back so he could see her face. That makes you 6. And 6-year-olds aren't supposed to remember everything. That's not your job. What's my job? Being a kid and eating too many pancakes and driving me crazy. Luna smiled, small and tentative. I'm good at that. You're the best at it. They stayed like that for another moment before Luna wriggled free and announced she needed to brush her teeth because they were disgustingly sticky. Damian helped her upstairs, made sure she actually used toothpaste this time instead of just running the brush underwater, and got her dressed in the dinosaur shirt she'd worn 3 times this week already. The drive to school was quiet. Luna pressed her face against the window and narrated the passing scenery like she was a nature documentary host. And here we see the boring gray building where sad people work. And here is the gas station where Daddy always forgets to fill up the truck. I filled up on Tuesday. You were on empty on Monday. How do you even know that? I pay attention. Luna grinned at him in the rearview mirror. Damian pulled up to the elementary school, where other parents were already doing the drop-off shuffle. Luna unbuckled herself, grabbed her backpack, and paused with her hand on the door. Daddy? Yeah? If you get a girlfriend, can she like dinosaurs? That's your main requirement? It's important. I'll keep that in mind. Luna nodded, satisfied, and climbed out. She ran toward the school entrance where her friend Macy was waiting, and the two of them immediately started talking at speeds that should not have been physically possible. Damian waited until they were inside before pulling away. The Morrison house was a 40-minute drive north, a Victorian-era disaster that the new owners had bought for almost nothing because it was one bad storm away from collapsing. Damian's job was to gut the interior, replace the foundation, rewire everything, and somehow make it livable without losing the original character. He liked projects like this. Broken things that still had good bones, things that just needed someone to care enough to fix them properly. He parked his truck in the gravel driveway and grabbed his toolbox from the bed. The house loomed above him, paint peeling, shutters hanging crooked, front porch sagging in the middle. Most people would have torn it down and started over, but Damian saw what it could be, what it should be. He spent the morning tearing out rotten subflooring in what used to be the dining room. The work was mindless, physical, the kind of thing that let his brain shut off and just focus on the immediate task. Crowbar. Hammer. Pull. Repeat. Around noon, his phone buzzed. He almost ignored it, probably the contractor with another question about tile choices or something equally boring, but something made him check. Unknown number. So are you going to text me or just keep pretending you don't have my number? Damian stared at the screen, reread the message 3 times, looked around the empty room like Elena might somehow be watching him through the walls. He typed, "How did you know I was pretending?" The response came immediately. "Because I gave you my number a week ago and you haven't used it. Either you lost it or you're overthinking." I'm betting overthinking. You could be wrong. I'm not, though. Damian sat down on a pile of torn-up floorboards, still holding his phone. Why are you texting me? Because I'm bored at work and you seem like the kind of person who needs someone to annoy him occasionally. I don't need that. That's exactly what someone who needs it would say. Despite himself, Damian almost smiled. Shouldn't you be working? Shouldn't you? I'm on break. Liar. You're sitting in some half-destroyed house covered in sawdust, questioning all your life choices. She wasn't wrong. How'd you know I work on houses? You told me. Last week. During our very emotionally honest conversation. I don't remember telling you. You did. Right after I told you about dropping out of art school and right before you looked at me like I'd punched you in the stomach. Damian set down his phone, rubbed his face with both hands, and picked it back up. Are you coming to the diner tonight? The typing indicator appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Do you want me to? He should say no. Should tell her he appreciated the concern, but he was fine, and she didn't need to keep checking on him. Should maintain boundaries like a normal person. Instead, he typed, Yeah. Okay, see you at 7. It's usually closer to 6:30. Even better. I'll have more time to judge your food choices. Damian put his phone away and got back to work. But for the rest of the afternoon, he couldn't stop thinking about the fact that Elena had texted him first. that she'd been thinking about him enough to reach out, that tonight she'd be sitting in Mira's booth again, and he wasn't sure if that made him feel guilty or relieved or some awful combination of both. By 5 o'clock, he was covered in dust and splinters. His shoulders ached, and he'd made decent progress on the dining room floor. He packed up his tools, locked the house, and started the drive home. Luna was in rare form when he picked her up from Mrs. Kowalski's. She'd apparently spent the afternoon making scientific diagrams of dinosaurs, which looked more like abstract expressionist paintings, and had strong opinions about why stegosauruses were better than triceratopses, even though she loved her stuffed triceratops and would fight anyone who said mean things about it. "That's very loyal of you," Damian said. "I know." Luna clutched her drawings to her chest. "Can we get pizza for dinner?" "I already made chicken." "But pizza is better." "You don't even know what kind of chicken." "Doesn't matter. Pizza is always better." Damian heated up leftover rotisserie chicken and green beans while Luna sat at the table and colored. She ate 3 bites of chicken, pushed the green beans around her plate, and declared herself too full for anything except the cookies she could see on top of the fridge. "Nice try." "I'm a growing kid. I need cookies for my bones." "That's not how bones work." "How do you know? You're not a scientist." "Neither are you." Luna grinned. "Not yet." After dinner, Damian helped Luna with her homework, basic addition problems that she could do in her sleep but insisted on explaining in excruciating detail, and then let her watch one episode of some cartoon about talking animals before bath time. By 6:15, Luna was clean in pajamas and demanding 3 stories instead of the usual 2. "I've got to go soon, monster." "Where?" "Just out for dinner." Luna's eyes narrowed. "With the lady?" "How do you—" Damian stopped. "Did Mrs. Kowalski tell you that?" "She says you've been smiling more." "I don't smile more." "You're smiling right now." Damian wiped the smile off his face. 2 stories. Final offer. 3. 2.5. Deal. He read her 2 full stories and then half of a third one before Luna's eyes started drooping. She fought it for another few minutes, insisting she wasn't tired, before finally giving up and falling asleep mid-sentence about a T-Rex who wanted to be a ballet dancer. Damian tucked the blanket around her, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Love you, monster." Mrs. Kowalski was already on the porch when he came downstairs. "You're punctual tonight," she observed. "Same as always." "You showered and changed your shirt." Damian looked down at his clean flannel. "I was covered in sawdust." "Mm-hmm." Mrs. Kowalski's smile was knowing and infuriating. "Have a good dinner, Damian. It's just the diner." "I know. Same as every week." "Sure." He wanted to argue, but arguing with Mrs. Kowalski was like arguing with the weather, pointless and exhausting. So he just grabbed his keys and headed for his truck. The drive to Maple Hearth felt different tonight. Longer, somehow. Like the universe was giving him extra time to turn around and go home and forget this whole thing. But he didn't turn around. He pulled into the parking lot at 6:27, which was 3 minutes earlier than usual. Elena's beat-up Honda Civic was already there, parked under the flickering streetlight. His heart did something stupid in his chest. Damian sat in his truck for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying to figure out what he was doing. This was just dinner. Same booth, same diner, same order. The only difference was someone would be sitting across from him, and that shouldn't have been a big deal, except it was a massive deal, and his hands were sweating. "You're being ridiculous," he muttered to himself. He got out of the truck. Elena was already inside, sitting in the corner booth, Mira's booth, with a cup of coffee and her sketchbook open on the table. She looked up when he walked in, and her whole face brightened. "You're late," she said. "I'm 3 minutes early." "I've been here for 10. That makes you late." Damian slid into the booth across from her. This time it felt less like betrayal, and more like something else. Something he couldn't name yet. "You didn't have to come," he said. "I know. So why did you?" Elena closed her sketchbook and leaned back. "Because I told you I would, and because I wanted to." "That's not a good reason." "It's the only reason that matters." Bonnie appeared with 2 menus, even though neither of them needed one. "Well, look at this. Twice in 2 weeks. We're practically throwing a parade." "Don't start," Damian warned. "Who, me? I would never." Bonnie set down the menus with a wink. "The usual for you?" "Yeah." "And for you, honey?" Elena glanced at the menu, then at the untouched plate of lemon herb chicken that was presumably on its way. What's good here besides the pie? The meatloaf, but only if you like food that tastes like your grandmother made it. I never met my grandmother. Then you're in for a treat, Bonnie scribbled on her pad. Coffee? Please. Bonnie left and Elena turned back to Damian. So, how was your week? Fine. That's the worst answer. Try again. I tore up a floor and almost put a crowbar through my foot. Luna decided stegosauruses are superior to all other dinosaurs and will fight anyone who disagrees. And I spent 4 days trying not to text you. Elena's eyebrows went up. You were thinking about texting me? I said I was trying not to. But you were thinking about it. Apparently. That's almost sweet. Don't read into it. Too late. Elena grinned and took a sip of her coffee. Bonnie must have brought it while they were talking. My week was boring. Box after box after box. My hands smell permanently like cardboard now, and I kept thinking about whether you'd actually show up tonight or if I'd be sitting here alone looking pathetic. You thought I wouldn't come? You're not exactly predictable. I'm incredibly predictable. Same booth, same night, same order for 2 years. That's routine, not predictable. Elena opened her sketchbook and flipped through a few pages. Predictable would be if I knew whether you'd want to talk or sit in silence, whether you'd be pissed I'm here or relieved, whether you're going to order that chicken tonight or finally admit you don't actually want it. Damian went still. What? The chicken. Elena looked at him directly. Are you ordering it tonight? I always order it. That's not what I asked. The question sat between them like a lit fuse. Damian could feel his pulse in his throat. 2 years, 785 Friday nights. The same plate, the same promise. I don't know, he admitted. Elena nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? Yeah, okay. She went back to her sketchbook like she hadn't just asked him to potentially dismantle the only ritual that made sense anymore. For what it's worth, I think the chicken's probably terrible. Extra time sounds like overkill. It was Mira's favorite. Mira had questionable taste in diner food. Damian felt anger spike hot and immediate. You didn't know her. You're right, I didn't. Elena didn't look up from her sketchbook. But I know you, and I know that eating cold chicken you don't even like isn't honoring her memory. It's punishing yourself for still being alive. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me I'm wrong. Damian opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. Bonnie returned with Elena's meatloaf and Damian's cheeseburger, and the plate of lemon herb chicken with extra thyme, steam still rising from it, placed carefully on the table between them. Anything else? Bonnie asked. We're good, Elena said. Bonnie left. The chicken sat there. Damian stared at it. You don't have to decide tonight, Elena said quietly. But eventually you're going to have to decide if you're living for her or living for you. Because right now you're not really doing either. Damian picked up his burger, set it down, picked it up again. She died because I had to work late, he said. The words came out raw, unplanned. I was supposed to pick up Luna from daycare. But I had this deadline, this house that needed to be finished, and I called Mira and asked if she could get Luna instead. She said yes. She always said yes. He couldn't look at Elena, could only stare at the chicken. It was raining. She was rushing. She hit black ice on Route 9 and Damian. If I'd just left work on time, if I'd picked up Luna myself, if I'd... Stop. Elena reached across the table and grabbed his hand. Hard. You can't live in the if. You'll drown. I already am. I know. Her grip tightened. But you've got a 6-year-old daughter who needs you to surface. And you can't do that if you're spending every Friday punishing yourself for being human. Damian finally looked at her. Elena's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying, just holding his hand across a table in a shitty diner while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and some 80s song played on the jukebox. I don't know how to stop, he said. Start small. Elena glanced at the chicken. Start with not ordering that next week. That's not small. That's... I know what it is. Elena let go of his hand. But she's not coming back, Damian, and that plate isn't keeping her here. It's just keeping you stuck. They sat in silence. Damian's burger went cold. Elena picked at her meatloaf. The chicken continued not being eaten by anyone. Finally, Damian said, "Tell me about your week, the real version." Elena looked surprised. "My week?" "Yeah, not the box packing part. The part you're not saying." She hesitated, then closed her sketchbook. "I've been drawing again. Actually drawing, not just doodling when I can't sleep. I've filled 3 sketchbooks in the past week." "That's good." "It's terrifying." Elena laughed, but it sounded fragile. "Because if I start hoping again, if I start believing I might actually be good at this, and then it doesn't work out, then you'll survive, same as you did last time." "You don't know that." "Yeah, I do." Damian finally picked up his burger and took a bite. "Because you're here. After everything you went through, after all the ways you failed, your words, not mine, you're still here, still drawing, still showing up. That's not nothing." Elena stared at him. "When did you get wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just tired of watching people, myself included, give up on things that matter." "The chicken matters to you." "The routine matters. The chicken's just—" Damian looked at the plate, really looked at it. "It's just cold food nobody wants." Elena smiled, small but real. Progress. They finished eating, talked about nothing important. Luna's dinosaur obsession. Elena's coworker who insisted on microwaving fish in the break room. The fact that Maple Hearth had apparently been using the same jukebox since 1983 and nobody knew how to fix it. When Bonnie brought the check, Elena snatched it again. "My turn," Damian protested. "You can get it next week." "Who says there's a next week?" Elena stood up, threw cash on the table. "I do. Same time." "Don't be late." She walked out, and Damian sat there staring at the uneaten chicken until Bonnie came to clear the table. "You gonna finish that, honey?" Bonnie asked, even though she already knew the answer. "No." "Want me to box it up?" Damian looked at the plate for a long moment. 2 years of leftover chicken in styrofoam containers, sitting in his fridge until he threw them away untouched. "No," he said. "Just throw it out." Bonnie's eyes widened slightly. "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." She took the plate without another word, and Damian sat there feeling like he'd just crossed some invisible line he couldn't uncross. When he got home, Luna was asleep, and Mrs. Kowalski was knitting something that looked like a misshapen scarf. "Good night?" she asked. "Different. Different good or different bad?" "Just different." Mrs. Kowalski studied him over her knitting needles. "You look lighter." "I don't feel lighter." "Give it time." After she left, Damian checked on Luna, still sprawled sideways, still breathing steady, and then went to his own room. He picked up the photo of Mira from the nightstand. "I didn't order the chicken tonight," he said. "Well, I ordered it, but I told Bonnie to throw it away, and I think—" His voice cracked. "I think that's okay. I think you'd want that to be okay." The photo smiled back, forever frozen, forever 29. Damian set it down and lay back on the bed. For the first time in 785 nights, he fell asleep without feeling like he was drowning. The next morning, Damian woke to Luna shaking his shoulder with the kind of urgency usually reserved for natural disasters. "Daddy, Daddy, wake up! Emergency!" He bolted upright, heart hammering. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" "No." Luna held up her stuffed triceratops. "Mr. Stompy's arm is falling off." Damian looked at the toy. A single thread had come loose on the seam. "Luna, that's not an emergency." "It is to Mr. Stompy. It's 6 in the morning. Mr. Stompy doesn't care about time." She shoved the dinosaur into his hands. "Can you fix it?" Damian squinted at the loose thread. He couldn't sew. Mira had been the one who knew how to do that kind of thing, but Luna was looking at him with those wide, hopeful eyes, and he couldn't exactly tell his 6-year-old daughter that her dead mother would have handled this better. "Yeah, monster, I'll fix it." "Promise?" "Promise." Luna threw her arms around his neck, nearly choking him, then bounced out of the room singing some song about dinosaurs that she definitely made up herself because the lyrics made no sense. Damian stared at Mr. Stompy's damaged arm and wondered if there was a YouTube tutorial for emergency dinosaur surgery. The week that followed felt strange in ways Damian couldn't articulate. Nothing major changed. He still woke up early, still made Luna breakfast, still spent his days covered in sawdust at the Morrison house. But something had shifted. Some internal weight had redistributed itself, and he wasn't quite sure if that was good or terrifying. Elena texted him on Tuesday. "How's your week going?" He was standing in what used to be a bathroom, trying to figure out why the previous owner had thought carpeted floors were a good idea in a room designed for water. Found carpet in a bathroom. Considering arson, that's a reasonable response. The smell is unholy. Have you considered that the house might be cursed? It's definitely cursed, but I'm getting paid to uncurse it. That's the spirit, literally. Damian found himself smiling at his phone like an idiot. He shoved it back in his pocket and got back to work, but the smile stayed. On Wednesday, Luna came home from school and announced she'd made a new friend named Sophia, who had opinions about whether pterodactyls were technically dinosaurs and was willing to fight about it. "That sounds like a good friend," Damian said, helping her with her math homework. "She invited me to her birthday party on Saturday." "That's great. Can I go?" "Of course you can go." Luna hesitated, chewing on her pencil. "Will you be okay without me?" The question hit harder than it should have. "I'll be fine, monster. Why wouldn't I be?" "Because you're always sad when I'm not here." Damian set down the homework sheet. "I'm not sad. I just miss you when you're gone." "That's the same thing. It's different." "How?" He didn't have a good answer for that. "I'm okay, Luna, I promise. You should go to the party and have fun." Luna studied him with the kind of intensity that made him feel like she could see straight through every lie he'd ever told. Then she nodded and went back to her math problems like the conversation had never happened. Thursday night, Damian finally attempted to fix Mr. Stompy's arm. He'd watched 3 different YouTube videos and felt moderately confident he could handle a basic running stitch without causing more damage. He was wrong. 20 minutes in, he'd somehow made the tear worse, stabbed himself with the needle twice, and Mr. Stompy looked like he'd been in a bar fight. "This is a disaster," he muttered. "What's a disaster?" Elena's voice came through his phone, which was propped against a coffee mug on the kitchen table. She'd called 30 minutes ago, and they'd been talking while he attempted surgery. "I'm murdering a stuffed dinosaur." "Let me see." Damian held up Mr. Stompy to the camera. Elena's face appeared on the screen, and even through the phone he could see her trying not to laugh. "Oh no. I know. That's really bad. I know. Why didn't you just take it to a tailor?" "Because Luna asked me to fix it, and I stupidly said yes." Elena bit her lip, still fighting a smile. "Okay, stop. Put the needle down before you make it worse." "It can't get worse." "It absolutely can. I've seen you work. You're determined." She shifted on her end of the call. She was sitting in what looked like a tiny kitchen, hair pulled back, wearing an old college sweatshirt. "Here's what you're going to do. Take the thread out. All of it. That'll make the hole bigger." "The hole's already huge. We're starting over." For the next 45 minutes, Elena walked him through the process step by step. Thread the needle properly, not the end. Small stitches. Don't pull too tight. When Damian finally tied off the last stitch, Mr. Stompy's arm was reattached and looked almost professional. "I can't believe that worked," he said. "You doubted me?" "I doubted myself." "That's fair." Elena yawned, covering her mouth with her hand. "Sorry, long day." "You didn't have to stay on the phone this whole time." "I know, but it was funny watching you swear at a dinosaur." She smiled, soft and tired. "Plus, I didn't have anything better to do." "That's sad," says the guy who spent his Thursday night doing surgery on a stuffed animal. "That's different. I have a kid. And I have a very demanding couch that requires me to sit on it and watch bad TV." Elena pulled a blanket around her shoulders. "See you tomorrow?" "Yeah, see you tomorrow." After they hung up, Damian sat at the kitchen table holding Mr. Stompy and trying to remember the last time he'd talked to someone on the phone for 45 minutes about nothing important. Mira used to call him during his lunch breaks, back when Luna was a baby and Mira was home on maternity leave, losing her mind from isolation. They'd talk about everything and nothing, whether Luna had napped, what to make for dinner, the weird neighbor who collected garden gnomes. He'd forgotten what that felt like, having someone to call just because. Friday arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day that felt like the world had given up on color entirely. Damian dropped Luna at school, worked through lunch at the Morrison house, and left early to pick up Luna from her birthday party. Sophia's parents lived in one of those new subdivision houses that all looked identical, with perfect lawns and identical mailboxes, and the kind of aggressive cheerfulness that made Damian tired just looking at it. He rang the doorbell, and Sophia's mother answered, blonde, energetic, wearing yoga pants, and a smile that was probably genuine but felt like work. "You must be Luna's dad. I'm Jessica. Come in, come in. The girls are just finishing up cake." The house smelled like sugar and children. Damian stepped inside and immediately felt out of place. There were decorations everywhere, purple balloons, streamers, a banner that said, "Happy 6th birthday, Sophia," in glittery letters. A dozen 6-year-olds were running around screaming at frequencies that shouldn't have been physically possible. Luna spotted him and ran over, face covered in chocolate frosting. "Daddy, Sophia has a trampoline." "That's great, monster." "Can we get a trampoline?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I like my insurance rates the way they are." Luna frowned, but was immediately distracted by Sophia yelling something about presents. She ran off, and Damian was left standing awkwardly in the entryway while Jessica made small talk about the weather. And wasn't it crazy how fast kids grew up, and had he met the other parents yet? He had not met the other parents. He generally avoided situations where he'd have to meet other parents because that required being social and pretending he had his life together. "Luna talks about you all the time," Jessica said. "She's such a sweet kid." "Thanks." "She mentioned she's excited about going to the diner tonight?" Damian's brain stuttered. "What? The diner? She said you go every Friday with a friend." Jessica's smile turned knowing. "Is it a date?" "No, it's not a date." "Sure." Jessica's tone suggested she didn't believe him at all. "Well, it's nice that you're getting out there. It's been, 2 years since your wife passed?" The question was casual, like she was asking about the weather, and it made Damian want to walk directly into traffic. "Yeah, 2 years. That must be so hard. But you're doing great. Luna's so well adjusted. You should be proud." Damian nodded because he didn't trust himself to speak. Luna was well adjusted because she had to be, because he couldn't fall apart, because someone had to keep functioning and he was the only option. Luna reappeared with a goodie bag and enough sugar in her system to power a small city. "Can we go now?" "Yeah, monster. Let's go." They said their goodbyes. Jessica insisted on giving Damian her number in case Luna and Sophia want to have a play date, an escape to the truck. Luna talked nonstop the entire drive home about trampolines and cake, and how Sophia's little brother had cried because he wanted to open presents too. By the time they got home, it was almost 6. Mrs. Kowalski was already on the porch, bundled in her marshmallow coat. "Someone had a good time," she observed, taking in Luna's frosting-covered face. "There was cake," Luna announced, "and a trampoline, and Sophia's mom said Daddy has a girlfriend." Mrs. Kowalski's eyebrows shot up. "Did she now?" "She's not my girlfriend," Damian said quickly. "Then what is she?" Luna asked. "A friend. A girlfriend. That's 2 words." "It's still the same thing." Mrs. Kowalski was trying very hard not to laugh. "Go get cleaned up, Luna. Your daddy's got to leave soon." Luna ran inside, leaving Damian alone with Mrs. Kowalski's knowing look. "Don't start," he warned. "I didn't say anything." "You're thinking it very loudly." "All I'm thinking is that you seem happier." Mrs. Kowalski patted his arm. "And that's a good thing, Damian. Don't let guilt convince you otherwise." She went inside before he could respond. Damian stood on the porch for a moment, hands shoved in his pockets, trying to untangle the knot in his chest. He wasn't happy. He was less miserable. There was a difference. Wasn't there? By 6:30, he was showered, changed, and driving toward Maple Hearth with his hands too tight on the steering wheel. Elena's car was already in the parking lot, and she was standing outside the diner smoking a cigarette. Damian didn't know she smoked. "That'll kill you," he said, climbing out of his truck. Elena took a drag and blew smoke into the cold air. "So will a lot of things. At least this one tastes good." "Does it?" "No. It tastes like regret and poor choices. But I'm committed." She stubbed out the cigarette on the bottom of her boot and flicked it into a trash can. "How was your week?" "Luna went to a birthday party and now thinks we need a trampoline." "Do you need a trampoline?" "Absolutely not. That's probably wise." Elena pulled open the diner door. After you. The diner was quieter than usual. Just a couple of truckers at the counter and an elderly woman in a booth reading a book. Damian and Elena slid into the corner booth, and Bonnie appeared almost immediately. The usual? She asked Damian. He hesitated, opened his mouth, closed it. No, he finally said. Just the cheeseburger tonight. Bonnie went very still. No chicken? No chicken. She looked at Elena, then back at Damian, then at the empty space where the plate usually sat. Okay, honey, just the burger. After Bonnie left, Elena leaned back and crossed her arms. That was a big deal. It's just food. We both know it's not just food. Damian picked at a tear in the vinyl booth. I fixed Mr. Stompy. I know. I was there. Luna cried when I gave it back to her, happy crying. Said I was the best dad ever. He looked up at Elena. And I kept thinking that Mira would have done it better, would have made the stitches neater, wouldn't have stabbed herself twice. But Luna didn't care. She just cared that I tried. That's what matters. Is it? Damian's voice came out rougher than he intended. Because I feel like I'm failing at everything. At being a dad. At moving on. At figuring out how to exist in a world where she's gone and I'm still here. Elena reached across the table and took his hand. You're not failing. You're surviving, and some days that's enough. Is it enough for you? The question hung between them. Elena's grip on his hand tightened. No, she admitted, but I'm working on it. Bonnie returned with their food, Damian's burger, Elena's meatloaf, and noticeably no plate of lemon herb chicken. The absence felt enormous. They ate in silence for a while. The quiet wasn't uncomfortable, but it wasn't easy either. It was the kind of silence that came from two people sitting in their own broken pieces, trying to figure out how to fit them back together. I submitted my portfolio to another gallery, Elena said suddenly. Damian looked up. When? Tuesday. I've been putting it off for months, but I finally just did it. Sent off 20 pieces and a cover letter that probably made me sound like an idiot. I'm sure it didn't. It definitely did. I used the phrase artistic journey unironically. Elena stabbed at her meatloaf. But whatever, it's out there. Now I just get to wait for rejection. What if they don't reject you? Then I'll have a different kind of panic attack. Damian almost smiled. You're assuming the worst. I'm being realistic. There's a difference between realistic and fatalistic. Elena pointed her fork at him. When did you become the optimistic one? I'm not optimistic. I'm just tired of watching people, myself included, quit before they even start. Is that what I'm doing? Yeah, you're deciding it won't work before you give it a chance to fail properly. Elena stared at him, then burst out laughing. That's the worst pep talk I've ever heard. I'm not good at pep talks. Clearly. But she was smiling now, real and bright. Okay, fine. I'll try not to assume complete failure until I have confirmation. That's all I'm asking. They finished eating and ordered pie. Apple for Elena, cherry for Damian, and talked about nothing important. Luna's dinosaur obsession, the Morrison house's carpeted bathroom, whether the jukebox was actually broken or just incredibly passive-aggressive. When Bonnie brought the check, Damian grabbed it before Elena could. My turn, he said. You sure? You've paid the last 2 times. I'm sure. Elena nodded, and something in her expression shifted. Damian. Yeah? Why do you keep showing up? To the diner, I mean. You could stop, could go literally anywhere else for dinner, but you keep coming back. Damian thought about it, really thought about it. A month ago, the answer would have been automatic. Because he'd promised Mira. Because letting go of this place meant letting go of her. Because the routine was the only thing keeping him tethered to who he used to be. But that wasn't true anymore. Or at least it wasn't the whole truth. I keep coming back because you're here, he said. Elena's breath caught. Damian? I don't mean it's not. He struggled to find the right words. You make this place feel less like a graveyard, and I didn't realize how much I needed that until you sat down in that booth and refused to let me drown in my own bullshit. Elena's eyes were bright. That's the second worst pep talk I've ever heard. I'm on a roll tonight. Apparently. She smiled, but it was shaky. For what it's worth, I keep coming back because you make me feel like I'm not the only person in the world who's completely lost. You're not lost. Yes, I am, but you are too, and somehow that makes it less terrifying. They sat there for a moment, hands almost touching across the table, the space between them charged with something neither of them knew how to name. Then Damian's phone rang. Mrs. Kowalski's name flashed on the screen, and his stomach dropped. She never called during dinner. Never. I have to take this, he said, already standing. Of course. He stepped outside into the cold and answered. What's wrong? Damian, Mrs. Kowalski's voice was tight. You need to come home, now. What happened? Is Luna? She's burning up, fever of 103. I gave her medicine, but it's not coming down, and she's asking for you. The world tilted. I'm on my way. He hung up and ran back inside. Elena took one look at his face and stood up. What happened? Luna's sick. I have to go. I'll come with you. You don't have to. I'm coming with you. Elena grabbed her jacket. Let's go. They ran to Damian's truck. He drove too fast, hands shaking, while Elena sat beside him, radiating calm, even though he could see her gripping the door handle. She's going to be okay, Elena said. You don't know that. Kids get fevers. It's normal. Mira had a headache. The words came out strangled. Just a headache. And then the accident happened, and she was gone, and I can't lose Luna too. I can't. You won't. We're 5 minutes away. She's going to be fine. But Damian's brain was spiraling. Every worst-case scenario. Every possible way the universe could take away the last person who mattered. By the time they pulled into his driveway, he could barely breathe. Mrs. Kowalski met them at the door. She's upstairs. Fever's still high, but she's conscious. Damian took the stairs 3 at a time. Luna was in her bed, wrapped in blankets, her face flushed and sweaty. She looked so small, so fragile. Daddy? Her voice was tiny. I'm here, monster. He sat on the edge of her bed and pressed his hand to her forehead. She was burning up. How do you feel? Everything hurts. I know. We're going to make it better. He looked at Mrs. Kowalski. When did this start? About an hour ago. She said her throat hurt, then she got the chills, then the fever spiked. Elena appeared in the doorway, hesitant. Do you want me to call a doctor? I want you to... Damian stopped, took a breath. Yeah. Call the pediatrician. Numbers on the fridge. Elena disappeared. Damian turned back to Luna, who was looking at him with glassy, unfocused eyes. Am I going to die? She asked. No, you've got a fever, that's all. Mommy died. Damian's chest cracked open. Mommy died in an accident. This is different. You're going to be fine. Promise? Promise. Luna reached for his hand and Damian held on like she was the only thing keeping him from flying apart. Elena came back upstairs. The answering service said to bring her to urgent care if the fever doesn't break in the next hour. They'll call back in 20 minutes. Okay. Damian looked at Mrs. Kowalski. Can you... I'll wait downstairs. You focus on Luna. She left, and Elena lingered in the doorway, clearly unsure if she should stay or go. You can leave, Damian said. I know this isn't... You don't have to... I'm not leaving. Elena sat down on the floor next to Luna's bed. Not unless you want me to. Damian didn't know what he wanted. His brain was too full of fear and memories and the overwhelming certainty that he was about to lose everything again. But Elena sitting there, solid, present, refusing to run, somehow made the panic slightly less suffocating. Stay, he said. So she did. For the next hour, they waited. Damian kept checking Luna's temperature. Elena brought cool washcloths and water. Luna drifted in and out of restless sleep, mumbling about dinosaurs and trampolines. At 8:30, the fever finally broke. Luna's temperature dropped to 101, then 100, then 99. Color started returning to her face. She opened her eyes and asked for juice. Damian nearly collapsed with relief. See? Elena said quietly. She's okay. Yeah. His voice was wrecked. Yeah, she's okay. Luna drank her juice, demanded a story, and fell asleep halfway through the 3rd page. Damian stayed beside her bed long after she was clearly fine, just watching her breathe. Elena eventually stood up. I should probably go. You don't have to. You need time with her, and I need to get home before my car turns into a pumpkin. She paused at the doorway. Text me later? Let me know she's okay? Yeah, I will. Elena left, and Damian sat in Luna's room until his back ached and his legs went numb. Mrs. Kowalski had gone home at some point. The house was quiet, except for Luna's soft breathing and the hum of the heater. Around midnight, Damian finally went to his own room. He picked up the photo of Mira from the nightstand. She's okay, he told the picture. Luna's okay. But I was terrified. I thought... His voice broke. I thought I was going to lose her too. And I don't know how to live with this fear. This constant, crushing fear that everyone I love is going to disappear. The photo didn't answer. Never did. But somewhere in his pocket, his phone buzzed. A text from Elena. How's Luna? Sleeping. Fever's gone. She's okay. And how are you? Damian stared at the question. Nobody ever asked how he was. They asked about Luna, about work, about whether he needed anything, but never about him. I don't know. That's fair. I'm terrified all the time. That something's going to happen to her, that I won't be enough to keep her safe. You can't control everything, Damian. I know, but knowing doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. They texted back and forth for another hour. About fear, about loss, about the impossible task of living when everyone you love feels temporary. Finally, Elena sent, Get some sleep. Luna needs you functional tomorrow. Yeah, thanks for tonight, for staying. Anytime. Damian set his phone down and lay back on the bed. Outside, wind rattled the windows. Inside, Luna slept safely in her room, and Damian was still breathing, still functioning, still here. He closed his eyes and tried to believe that tomorrow would be easier. It probably wouldn't be. But at least he wouldn't be facing it alone. Luna recovered by Monday, but Damian didn't. Not physically. He was fine, functional, going through all the motions. But something inside him had fractured that night. The fear that had gripped him when Mrs. Kowalski called, the certainty that he was about to lose everything again, had burrowed deep under his skin and refused to leave. He found himself checking on Luna obsessively, during the night, before school, after school. Texting Mrs. Kowalski every hour to make sure she was still breathing, still okay, still there. Daddy, I'm fine, Luna said on Wednesday when he checked her forehead for the third time that morning. I know. Then why do you keep touching my head? Just making sure. I'm not sick anymore. I know that too. Luna studied him with those too perceptive eyes. You're scared. I'm not scared. Yes, you are. You get this face. Like when the power went out and you thought something bad was happening, but it was just a storm. Damian set down the juice box he'd been holding. I'm okay, monster. That's what you always say. Because it's always true. Is it? The question shouldn't have come from a 6-year-old, but Luna had learned early that adults lied about being okay, and she'd gotten good at calling him on it. I'm working on it, Damian said, which was the most honest answer he could give. Luna seemed satisfied with that. She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door, then turned back. Daddy? Yeah? Is Elena coming to dinner again on Friday? I don't know, maybe. I want to meet her. Damian's heart did something complicated. Why? Because you smile when you talk about her, and you don't smile about a lot of things. Before he could respond, Luna was out the door and running toward Mrs. Kowalski's car for the school run. Damian stood in the kitchen, coffee going cold in his hand, trying to process the fact that his 6-year-old daughter had just read him like a book he didn't know he'd written. He texted Elena later that afternoon while sitting in his truck outside the Morrison house, staring at the peeling paint and trying to find the energy to go inside. Luna wants to meet you. The response came fast. That's terrifying. Tell me about it. What did you say? Nothing. She ambushed me this morning and then ran away before I could panic properly. Smart kid. Too smart. It's a problem. Do you want me to meet her? Damian stared at the question. Did he? Letting Elena into the diner was one thing. Letting her into his house, his life, his daughter's life. That was something else entirely. I don't know. Maybe. Is that okay? It's your call, Damian. I'm not going to push. You've been pushing since the day we met. That's different. I push you to stop being miserable. I don't push you to introduce me to your kid. That's a you decision. Damian ran a hand through his hair. He was overthinking this. He overthought everything. That was the problem. What if she doesn't like you? Then I'll be devastated and eat my feelings in pie. But kids usually like me. I'm fun. Are you? I'm fun adjacent. It counts. Despite everything, Damian smiled. Friday. Come to the house first, meet Luna, then we'll go to the diner. You sure? No. But I'm doing it anyway. That's progress. Or stupidity. Same thing sometimes. Damian put his phone away and forced himself out of the truck. The Morrison house was waiting, and he had work to do. But for the first time in weeks, the work felt less like escape and more like something he was doing in between the parts of his life that actually mattered. The rest of the week crawled by with the speed of continental drift. Damian worked on the house, picked up Luna from school, made dinner, helped with homework, read dinosaur books, and tried not to spiral about Friday. He mostly succeeded. Luna asked about Elena approximately 40 times, each question more specific than the last. What does she look like? Does she like dinosaurs? Is she nice? Does she know how to draw? Can she do a cartwheel? Why would that matter? Damian asked. I don't know, but it's good information. By Friday morning, Damian was a wreck. He cleaned the house, actually cleaned it, not just shoved things into closets, and realized halfway through that he was acting like a teenager preparing for prom. He made Luna clean her room, which resulted in a 15-minute argument about why stuffed animals didn't count as clutter and couldn't be thrown away. But there's like 40 of them, Damian said, staring at the mountain of plush toys covering her bed. 37. And they all have names. Luna. Mr. Stompy would be sad if I got rid of anyone. Damian looked at the Triceratops, whose repaired arm was holding up remarkably well. Mr. Stompy doesn't get a vote. Yes, he does. He's the leader. They compromised by organizing the stuffed animals into a bin that barely closed. Luna was deeply unhappy about it, but accepted defeat with the grace of someone planning a prison break later. Elena was supposed to arrive at 6. By 5:30, Damian had checked the kitchen 4 times to make sure it was clean, straightened the living room couch cushions twice, and was seriously considering just canceling everything and hiding under his bed. You're being weird, Luna observed from her spot on the floor where she was drawing what appeared to be a dinosaur fighting a dragon. I'm not weird. You keep walking in circles. I'm thinking. About what? Stuff. What stuff? Adult stuff. Luna rolled her eyes in a way that was far too sophisticated for a 6-year-old. You're nervous about Elena. I'm not nervous. You're doing the thing where you touch your face a lot. Damian dropped his hand from his jaw. I don't do that. Yes, you do. When you're worried about something, you rub your face like you're trying to erase it. When did you become a detective? I've always been a detective. You just don't pay attention. The doorbell rang, and Damian's heart tried to escape through his throat. Luna jumped up, scattering crayons everywhere. I'll get it. Luna, wait. But she was already at the door, yanking it open with the enthusiasm of someone who had zero concept of stranger danger. Elena stood on the porch in jeans and a jacket, holding a plastic container, looking almost as nervous as Damian felt. Hi, Luna said. Are you Elena? I am, and you must be Luna. I am. Do you like dinosaurs? Elena didn't miss a beat. I think they're great, especially the ones with the long necks. Brachiosaurus? Is that what they're called? See, I need someone to teach me. Luna beamed. I can teach you everything. Come in. She grabbed Elena's hand and pulled her inside before Damian could intervene. Elena shot him a look over Luna's head, half amused, half panicked, and let herself be dragged into the living room. This is our house, Luna announced. That's the couch. That's Daddy's chair that nobody else is allowed to sit in. That's the TV, but we only watch it on weekends and sometimes Wednesdays if Daddy's tired. Good to know, Elena said solemnly. And this, Luna held up her drawing, is a T-Rex fighting a dragon. Who do you think would win? Elena studied the picture with genuine concentration. I think the dragon has the advantage with the flying and fire breathing, but the T-Rex has those teeth. That's a tough call. I think they'd become friends. Even better. Damian stood in the doorway watching this interaction and feeling like he'd accidentally walked into an alternate dimension. Elena hadn't even been in the house for 2 minutes, and Luna was already treating her like they'd known each other for years. Do you want to see my room? Luna asked. Luna, maybe give Elena a minute to... I'd love to see your room, Elena said. Luna grabbed her hand again and towed her toward the stairs. Elena glanced back at Damian with an expression that clearly said help me, but she was smiling. Damian followed them upstairs and watched as Luna gave Elena the full tour. The bed where Mr. Stompy lived. The bookshelf with every dinosaur book ever published. The drawings taped to the walls. The bin of stuffed animals that were temporarily relocated but would definitely be coming back. Elena nodded seriously at everything, asked questions, and didn't once talk down to Luna like she was just a kid. She treated her like a person with valid opinions about important things like whether pterodactyls counted as dinosaurs and what color triceratops probably were. After 15 minutes, Luna announced she was hungry, and they all went back downstairs. Elena set the plastic container on the kitchen counter. I brought cookies, she said. I wasn't sure what you liked, so I made chocolate chip and also some with M&Ms because more chocolate is usually better. Luna's eyes went wide. Can I have one? After dinner, Damian said. But after dinner. Luna pouted, but accepted this. Elena hid a smile. So, Elena said, what's the dinner plan? The diner, Luna said immediately. We always go to the diner on Fridays. Always? Every single Friday since forever. Elena looked at Damian, something shifting in her expression. That's a good tradition. It's the best tradition, Luna said. Daddy used to bring food home for Mommy, but now he doesn't anymore because Mommy's on the moon. The room went very quiet. Damian's chest tightened. He tried so hard to explain death to Luna in a way that made sense, but 6-year-olds didn't do well with abstract concepts like gone forever. So the moon explanation had stuck, and he hadn't known how to correct it without making everything worse. The moon's pretty far away, Elena said carefully. I know. But Daddy says maybe she can still see us from there. I think if anyone could, it would be a mom. Luna nodded, satisfied, and went back to talking about dinosaurs like she hadn't just casually destroyed Damian's composure. Elena caught his eye across the kitchen and mouthed, You okay? He nodded, even though he wasn't sure it was true. They left for the diner at 6:30. Luna insisted on sitting in the back seat of Damian's truck and provided running commentary on everything they passed. Elena sat in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing at Damian with an expression he couldn't quite read. Maple Hearth was busier than usual. Friday night crowd. Families, couples, the usual truckers at the counter. Bonnie spotted them immediately and her face lit up like someone had just told her she'd won the lottery. Well, 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 she said, grabbing 3 menus. Look who brought company. This is Luna, Damian said. I figured. She looks just like you. Everyone says I look like my mommy, Luna corrected. Except for my nose. My nose is from Daddy. Bonnie's expression softened. Well, you're beautiful either way, sweetheart. Come on, I've got your booth ready. They slid into the corner booth, Damian on one side, Elena and Luna on the other. Luna immediately started asking questions about the jukebox, the pie flavors, and whether Bonnie had ever seen a real dinosaur. Not personally, Bonnie said, but I've been around long enough that I might have missed them by just a few years. Luna giggled. Elena ordered meatloaf. Luna wanted chicken nuggets shaped like dinosaurs, was disappointed to learn they only had regular nuggets, but agreed to accept them anyway. Damian ordered his usual cheeseburger and tried not to think about the fact that there was no second plate on the table. Elena noticed anyway. She didn't say anything, just reached under the table and squeezed his knee once. Quick, reassuring. He squeezed back. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Luna talked non-stop about everything and nothing. Elena asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Bonnie kept refilling their drinks and making comments about what a nice family, until Damian wanted to sink through the floor. Halfway through the meal, Luna looked at Elena very seriously and said, Do you like my daddy? Elena choked on her water. Damian nearly dropped his burger. Luna, he said, you can't just ask people that. Why not? Because it's not appropriate. Mrs. Kowalski says it's good to be direct. Mrs. Kowalski needs to stop giving you advice. Elena was trying very hard not to laugh. It's okay. And yes, Luna, I like your daddy. He's a good person. Are you going to marry him? Luna! What? I'm just asking. You can't ask that. But Sophia's mom asked if you were dating, and you said no, but you look like you're dating. Damian buried his face in his hands. Elena was definitely laughing now, shoulders shaking with the effort of holding it in. "We're friends," Damian said through his fingers. "Daddy's friends don't come to our house and bring cookies," Luna pointed out. "She's got a point," Elena said. Damian glared at her. She grinned back, unrepentant. "Here's the thing, Luna," Elena said. "Your daddy and I are figuring things out, and sometimes grown-ups need time to do that. Is that okay?" Luna considered this. "I guess. But you should figure it out faster because Daddy smiles more when you're around." "Luna, it's true. You do." Damian had no defense against that because she was right. He did smile more, felt lighter, less like he was drowning in the same place for 2 years straight. "I'll keep that in mind," Elena said seriously. After dinner, they ordered pie. Apple for Elena, cherry for Damian, chocolate for Luna. They ate slowly, savoring the sweetness and the warmth and the strange, unexpected comfort of sitting together in a booth that used to feel like a graveyard but now felt almost like something new. On the drive home, Luna fell asleep in the back seat, chocolate smudged on her face. Elena rode in silence, watching the dark fields blur past the window. "Thank you," Damian said quietly. "For what?" "For being patient with her, with me, with all of this." "You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do." Elena reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. "She's wonderful, Damian. You're doing a good job." "I'm barely holding it together." "That's what good parenting looks like. Nobody has it figured out." "You don't have kids." "No, but I had a mom who was barely holding it together, and I turned out mostly okay. Luna's going to be fine. Better than fine." Damian held on to her hand like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. When they pulled into his driveway, he didn't want to let go. "Do you want to come in?" he asked. "I should probably get home." "Right. Yeah, of course." But neither of them moved. "Damian? Yeah? I'm glad you invited me tonight." "Me too." "Even with the marriage interrogation?" "Especially because of that." Elena laughed, soft and real. Then she leaned over and kissed him on the cheek, quick, gentle. Gone before he could process it. "Good night, Damian." "Good night." She got out of the truck and into her car. Damian sat there watching her drive away, his hand still warm from holding hers, his cheek still tingling from where her lips had been. In the back seat, Luna stirred. "Is Elena gone?" "Yeah, monster, she's gone." "I like her." "Me too." "Are you going to marry her?" "Go back to sleep." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting tonight." Luna grumbled but settled back down. Damian carried her inside, got her into bed without fully waking her, and stood in her doorway for a long moment just watching her breathe. Then he went to his own room, picked up the photo of Mira, and sat on the edge of the bed. "I think I'm falling for her," he said to the picture, to Mira, to the empty room. "Elena, I didn't mean to, didn't want to, but she's real. And she makes me feel like I'm allowed to be alive again instead of just existing." The photo smiled back, frozen and forever. "I don't know if that makes me a terrible person. If I'm supposed to wait longer or grieve harder or I don't know. But Luna likes her. And I like her. And for the first time in 2 years, I'm not just surviving. I'm actually living." He set the photo down gently. "I think you'd like her too," he whispered. Then he lay back on the bed and let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to have this. The following week passed in a blur of work and worry and waiting. Damian finished the Morrison house dining room, started on the upstairs bathroom, and tried not to check his phone every 5 minutes to see if Elena had texted. She had. Multiple times. Random thoughts throughout the day. Pictures of terrible warehouse safety violations. Questions about whether dinosaurs would have liked pizza. A photo of a sunset with the caption, "Thought of you." Damian saved that one. Luna asked about Elena constantly. When was she coming back? Could she come to dinner again? Did she know how to play board games? Could they invite her to Thanksgiving? "Thanksgiving's still 2 weeks away," Damian said. "So, that gives you time to ask." "I'm not asking her to Thanksgiving." "Why not?" "Because it's too soon." "For what?" Damian didn't have a good answer for that either. On Tuesday, Elena called him while he was ripping out subfloor and asked if he wanted to get coffee that wasn't from a diner. Like a date? He asked before his brain could stop his mouth. If you want it to be. Do you want it to be? I asked first. That's not how this works. How does it work? Damian sat down on a pile of lumber covered in dust, holding his phone like it might explode. I don't know. I haven't done this in a long time. Me neither. So we're both terrible at it. That's comforting. Is it? Sure. Low expectations. We can only go up from here. Despite everything, Damian smiled. Wednesday afternoon, there's a coffee shop near the Morrison house. I'll be there. They met at 3 o'clock at a place called The Grind that took itself way too seriously. The menu had things like single origin pour-over and artisanal cold brew, and the barista looked personally offended when Damian ordered regular coffee with cream. Elena got something with foam and cinnamon and 3 words Damian couldn't pronounce. They sat at a small table by the window, and for a moment neither of them knew what to say. This is weird, Elena finally said. Yeah. Good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet. She laughed. Fair. They talked for 2 hours. About everything. Damian's work on the Morrison house, Elena's portfolio submission that she still hadn't heard back about, Luna's latest dinosaur facts, the fact that Mrs. Kowalski apparently had opinions about Damian's love life and wasn't shy about sharing them. She cornered me yesterday, Damian said, told me I was blossoming and needed to embrace the journey. That's actually sweet. It's mortifying. It's both. At some point, their hands found each other across the table. Damian couldn't remember who reached first. Didn't matter. Elena's fingers laced through his, and it felt right in a way that should have been terrifying, but somehow wasn't. I got the call this morning, Elena said suddenly. What call? The gallery. They want to show my work. Damian's grip tightened. Elena, that's incredible. It's one show, small, local, not a big deal. It's a huge deal. I don't know if I can do it. Why not? Because what if I fail again? What if nobody comes or nobody likes it or... Then you'll have tried. That's more than you're doing now. Elena looked at him, eyes bright with unshed tears. When did you become the optimistic one? I'm not optimistic. I'm just tired of watching people I care about talk themselves out of good things. People you care about? Damian realized what he'd said. Yeah, that's... Elena's voice caught. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in years. That's depressing. Welcome to my life. They left the coffee shop as the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Elena walked Damian to his truck, and they stood there in the parking lot, not wanting to say goodbye. Friday? Elena asked. Friday? Your place or the diner? Both. Luna would kill me if I went to the diner without her now. Elena smiled. I like her. She likes you too. Won't stop talking about you. Good. I won't stop talking about her either, or you. She stepped closer. Damian? Yeah? Can I kiss you? Like actually kiss you, not just on the cheek. Damian's heart stopped. Yeah. Yes. Please. Elena rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. Soft, tentative, real. Damian kissed her back, and for the first time in 2 years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. When they finally pulled apart, Elena was smiling. That was, yeah. Good, yeah, or, oh, very good, yeah. Okay, good. She stepped back, still smiling. I'll see you Friday. See you Friday. Damian drove home with his heart doing things hearts shouldn't do, and his brain trying to process the fact that he just kissed someone who wasn't Mira and the world hadn't ended. That night, he told Luna about Elena's gallery show. That's so cool! Luna bounced on the couch. Can we go? I don't know if kids are allowed. We have to go. We have to support her. Support is a big word. Mrs. Kowalski taught me. She says when people we love do important things, we show up. Damian's chest tightened. People we love? Luna shrugged. I love Elena. Don't you? The question was so simple, so direct, so completely devastating. I don't know yet, monster. We'll figure it out, because she's really nice and she makes you happy and I think we should keep her. She's not a pet. I know, but we should still keep her. Later that night, after Luna was asleep, Damian sat in his room with the photo of Mira and tried to find the right words. I kissed her today, he said. Elena, I kissed her, and it felt good. And I don't know if I'm supposed to feel guilty about that, or relieved, or what. But I don't feel guilty. I just feel like maybe I'm allowed to be happy again. He set the photo down and stared at it for a long time. I'll always love you, he whispered, but I think I might love her too. And I think that's okay. I think you'd want that to be okay. The photo didn't answer, but somewhere deep inside, Damian felt something shift. Not letting go. Not forgetting. Just making room. Room for the past and the present. Room for grief and joy. Room for what was lost and what might still be found. The first snow came 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, early and unexpected, covering everything in a thin white blanket that turned the world quiet. Luna pressed her face against the kitchen window, breath fogging the glass, and announced that they needed to build a snowman immediately, or the snow might disappear and they'd miss their chance. It's 6 in the morning, Damian said, pouring coffee with one eye still closed. Snow doesn't care about time. That's not how snow works. How do you know? You're not a snow scientist. She had him there. They built the snowman after breakfast, a lopsided creation with stick arms and rocks for eyes that Luna insisted looked perfect and beautiful, and anyone who says different is wrong. Damian took a picture of her standing next to it, mittens covered in snow, grinning so wide her face looked like it might split. He sent the photo to Elena. Snow monster completed. Luna's proud. I'm freezing. That's the most pathetic snowman I've ever seen. Luna says it's perfect. Luna's right. I'm wrong. Please tell her I apologize. Damian showed Luna the text. She nodded, satisfied that Elena had seen the error of her ways. Later that night, after Luna was asleep, Damian stood in the backyard staring at the garden Mira had planted. It was buried under snow now, the weeds and dead vines hidden, everything blank and clean. He'd been avoiding this space for 2 years, couldn't bear to look at it, couldn't bring himself to fix it. But standing there in the cold with snow falling gentle around him, he realized something. The garden wasn't dead. It was just waiting for someone to care enough to bring it back. He went inside, grabbed a notebook, and started sketching. Not well. He wasn't an artist like Elena, but good enough to map out what the garden used to be and what it could become. Tomatoes here, herbs there. The rose bush Mira had loved in the back corner. Vegetables Luna would actually eat somewhere in the middle. When he finally looked up, it was past midnight. His coffee had gone cold. But the sketch was done, and for the first time looking at the garden didn't feel like drowning. Elena's gallery show was scheduled for the Saturday before Thanksgiving. The gallery was small, a renovated warehouse downtown with exposed brick and track lighting and the kind of minimalist aesthetic that made Damian feel underdressed even in his nice shirt. He'd asked Elena 3 times if she was sure she wanted him there. Why wouldn't I want you there, she'd said. Because I don't know anything about art. You don't have to know about art. You just have to show up. What if I say something stupid? You're going to say something stupid, that's a given. But I want you there anyway. So he went. With Luna, who'd insisted on wearing her fanciest dress, a blue thing with dinosaurs embroidered on the hem that she'd gotten for her birthday, and refused to take off for 3 days straight. The gallery was already crowded when they arrived. People in black turtlenecks discussing composition and emotional resonance in voices that suggested they took themselves very seriously. Damian immediately wanted to leave. Daddy, look! Luna grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the wall. Elena's work covered 3 panels. Charcoal sketches mostly, some with color. A cityscape at dusk. A woman sitting alone in a diner booth, light from the window making her look like she was glowing. A father and daughter building a snowman. A hand reaching across a table. Damian stopped in front of the diner sketch. The woman was Elena. He could tell by the way she'd captured herself, head tilted, looking at something just outside the frame. And across from her, barely visible in shadow, was the outline of a man. Is that you? Luna whispered. I think so. You're famous now. That's not how it works. It should be. Elena appeared beside them, looking nervous in a way he'd never seen before. She was wearing a black dress, hair down, makeup that made her eyes look bigger. She looked beautiful and terrified. "Hey," she said. "Hey," Damian said back. "What do you think?" He looked at the drawings again. Really looked. They weren't just sketches, they were moments, pieces of a story she'd been building without him realizing it. The loneliness, the connection, the slow, painful process of two broken people figuring out how to be whole. "I think you're incredibly talented," he said, "and I think anyone who doesn't see that is an idiot." Elena's eyes went bright. "That's the nicest review I've gotten all night." "What did the others say?" "Lots of words I didn't understand, something about raw vulnerability and authentic human experience. I just nodded and pretended I knew what they meant." "It's your art. You get to decide what it means." "What does it mean to you?" Damian looked at the sketch of the diner booth. "It means you saw something in me I didn't see in myself, and you decided it was worth drawing." Elena took his hand, squeezed it. "It was worth drawing. You're worth drawing." They stood there while people moved around them, discussing art in hushed voices. Luna got bored and wandered off to look at other exhibits. Someone approached Elena to ask about purchasing one of the pieces. Damian stepped back to give her space and watched as she talked about her work with a confidence he hadn't seen before. She was good at this. Better than good. She belonged here. Later, after the crowd had thinned and Luna had fallen asleep on a bench near the entrance, Elena found Damian standing in front of the diner sketch again. "You keep coming back to this one," she said. "It's my favorite." "Why?" "Because it's the moment everything changed, when you sat down and wouldn't leave me alone." "I'm very persistent." "You're very annoying." "Same thing." Elena leaned against him and Damian put his arm around her shoulders. "Thank you for coming tonight. It meant a lot." "I wouldn't have missed it. You tried to bail 3 times this week." "But I didn't actually bail. That's progress." Elena laughed, quiet and real. "Yeah, that's progress." Thanksgiving came fast. Luna had been asking for 2 weeks if Elena was coming to dinner, and Damian had been avoiding answering because he didn't know how to explain that inviting someone to Thanksgiving felt like crossing a line he wasn't sure he was ready to cross. But Wednesday night, while he was attempting to figure out how to cook a turkey without poisoning everyone, Elena texted, "What are you doing tomorrow? Trying not to burn the house down." "You?" "Nothing. My mom's in Florida and I don't have plans." Damian stared at his phone. This was it. The moment where he either invited her or made up an excuse. His hands were shaking. "Come to our house. We're doing Thanksgiving. It won't be fancy, but there will be food." "Probably." "You sure?" "Luna will kill me if I don't invite you." "That's not a real answer." "I'm sure. Please come." "Okay. What time?" 2. "And maybe come early to help me figure out this turkey because I have no idea what I'm doing." "You've never cooked a turkey?" "Mira always did it. I just showed up and ate." "Okay, I'll be there at noon. We'll figure it out." Thursday morning, Damian woke up to Luna jumping on his bed screaming that it was Thanksgiving and they needed to start cooking immediately. "It's 7 in the morning," he groaned. "The turkey takes forever. We have to start now." "We don't eat until 2. "But what if we mess up? We need practice time." She had a point. By the time Elena arrived at noon, the kitchen was chaos. Damian had the turkey half prepped, Luna was helping by rearranging the spices, and there was flour on every surface for reasons Damian couldn't explain. Elena took one look at the disaster and rolled up her sleeves. "Okay, new plan. Luna, you're on mashed potatoes. Damian, you're following my exact instructions on the turkey. I'm handling everything else." "You don't have to." "I'm handling everything else," Elena repeated, "unless you want to eat cereal for Thanksgiving." For the next 3 hours, they worked together. Elena walked Damian through turkey preparation like she was defusing a bomb. Luna mashed potatoes with intense concentration, only stopping occasionally to announce that her arms were definitely going to fall off. Mrs. Kowalski showed up at 1:30 with a casserole and opinions about how Damian was setting the table wrong. "Forks on the left," she said, rearranging everything. "I know where forks go." Clearly not. By 2 o'clock, the table was set, the food was ready, and Damian's house smelled like an actual home for the first time in years. They sat down, Damian at the head, Luna on one side, Elena on the other, Mrs. Kowalski across from Luna. And for a moment, nobody spoke. "Should we say something?" Luna asked. "Like what?" Damian said. "I don't know. Sophia's family says what they're thankful for." That's that's nice. Can we do that? Damian looked around the table. At Luna, bright-eyed and hopeful. At Mrs. Kowalski, who'd been showing up for 2 years without asking for anything in return. At Elena, who'd walked into his life and refused to let him keep drowning. Yeah, he said. We can do that. Luna went first. I'm thankful for dinosaurs and snow and Mr. Stompy and Daddy and Elena and Mrs. Kowalski, and that we have mashed potatoes because they're the best food. Mrs. Kowalski went next. I'm thankful for good neighbors and second chances and people who finally stop being stubborn. She looked directly at Damian when she said that last part. Elena smiled. I'm thankful for pie and terrible coffee and people who show up even when they're scared, and for a 6-year-old who asks very direct questions. Luna beamed. Everyone looked at Damian. He cleared his throat, tried to find words that didn't sound ridiculous, failed completely. I'm thankful that I am not alone anymore, he said quietly. For a long time, I thought being alone was what I deserved, that moving forward meant forgetting, but you, he looked at Elena, you showed me that's not true, that I can remember and still live, that grief and joy can exist in the same space, and I'm thankful for that, for you, for all of you. Luna reached over and grabbed his hand. That was really good, Daddy. Thanks, monster. Can we eat now? Yeah, we can eat. They ate too much, laughed too loud, told stories about nothing important. Luna explained her entire taxonomy of dinosaurs to Elena, who listened like it was the most fascinating lecture she'd ever heard. Mrs. Kowalski shared embarrassing stories about Damian from 2 years ago when he could barely function, and she'd basically kept him alive through sheer force of will. After dinner, while Elena and Mrs. Kowalski cleaned up despite Damian's protests, Luna pulled him into the living room. Daddy? Yeah? Are you happy? The question was simple. The answer wasn't. Yeah, monster. I think I am. Good. You deserve to be happy. Where'd you learn that? Mrs. Kowalski. She says everybody deserves to be happy, even when they don't think they do. Damian pulled Luna into a hug. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't pay attention. That night, after Mrs. Kowalski went home and Luna finally crashed from sugar overload, Damian and Elena sat on the back porch watching snow fall over the buried garden. Thank you for today, Damian said. You already thanked me. I'm thanking you again. You're welcome again. Elena leaned against him, and Damian wrapped his arm around her. Can I ask you something? Always. What happens now? What do you mean? I mean with us, with this. What are we doing? Damian was quiet for a long moment. A month ago, he wouldn't have known how to answer that. Would have panicked and pulled away and convinced himself that caring about someone meant betraying Mira's memory. But sitting here with Elena tucked against his side and Luna safe inside in the garden waiting to be brought back to life, he realized something. Love wasn't finite. It didn't run out. Loving Elena didn't mean loving Mira less, it just meant his heart had made room for both. I don't know what we're doing, he admitted, but I know I want to keep doing it, with you. Elena looked up at him. Yeah? Yeah, if you'll have me. Broken parts and all. I like your broken parts. They match mine. Damian kissed her then, slow and certain, while snow fell quiet around them and the house glowed warm behind them and everything felt, for the first time in years, exactly right. When they pulled apart, Elena was smiling. So, we're doing this? We're doing this, even though it's terrifying? Especially because it's terrifying. Okay then. She settled back against him. Fair warning, though. I'm a mess. I'm going to have bad days and freak out about my art and probably say the wrong thing at the worst possible time. I'm going to have bad days too. I'm going to miss Mira and feel guilty about being happy and definitely say the wrong thing. So we're both disasters. Completely. Perfect. I can work with that. They sat there until the cold drove them inside. Elena stayed over, sleeping in the guest room because Luna was still young and some things needed to happen slowly. And in the morning, Damian woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Luna explaining to Elena why Triceratops were objectively the best dinosaurs. But what about T-Rex? Elena asked. T-Rex is overrated. Everyone likes T-Rex. Triceratops is underappreciated. That's a fair point, Damian stood in the doorway watching them, coffee mug in hand, and thought about all the ways his life had changed in the past few months. The corner booth, that used to feel like a prison, now felt like a good memory. The garden that used to remind him of everything he'd lost now felt like a project worth tackling. The house that used to echo with absence now felt full, not perfect, not fixed, but full. That afternoon, after Elena left with promises to come back Friday, Damian took Luna outside to look at the garden. "It's all covered in snow," Luna observed. "I know, but underneath it's still there, waiting." Waiting for what? For spring, for someone to take care of it again. Luna looked up at him. "Are you going to take care of it?" "Yeah, I think I am." "Can I help?" "I'd like that." They stood there together looking at the blank white space that would someday be green again, alive again, different from what it was, but still beautiful. "Daddy?" Luna said. "Yeah?" "I think Mommy would like Elena." Damian's throat closed up. "Yeah?" "Yeah. Because Elena makes you smile, and Mommy always wanted you to smile." "How do you know that?" "Because that's what people who love you want, for you to be happy." Sometimes wisdom came from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it came from a 6-year-old standing in the snow, speaking truths that adults spent years trying to understand. "You're right," Damian said. "I think Mommy would like her too." That night, Damian sat in his room with the photo of Mira one last time. Not to say goodbye. He'd never really say goodbye, but to say something else. "I'm going to rebuild the garden," he told her. To the photo, to the memory, to whatever piece of her still lived in the spaces between his heartbeats. It won't look exactly like it did, but it'll be beautiful, and Luna's going to help, and maybe Elena too. He traced the edge of the frame with his thumb. "I'm going to keep living, not because I've forgotten you, but because you taught me that life is worth living fully, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, especially then." He set the photo on the nightstand, but this time he didn't stare at it until he fell asleep. Instead, he picked up his phone and texted Elena. "Thank you." For what? For sitting in that booth, for not leaving me alone, for showing me that moving forward doesn't mean letting go. You did that yourself. I just reminded you that you could. Still. Thank you. You're welcome. See you Friday? See you Friday. Damian put his phone away and lay back on the bed. Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, the house was warm and quiet. Luna slept safely down the hall. The photo of Mira smiled from the nightstand, forever 29, forever part of him. And for the first time in 2 years, Damian fell asleep without the crushing weight of guilt pressing down on his chest. He fell asleep thinking about spring, about gardens waiting to bloom, about a corner booth in a diner that used to hold ghosts, but now held something else entirely. Hope. Not the kind that promised everything would be easy or perfect or pain-free, but the kind that whispered, "You're allowed to try again. You're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to love what you lost and still make room for what comes next." Friday came the way Fridays always did. Damian picked up Luna from school, and they drove to the diner together. Elena was already there, sitting in the corner booth, 2 cups of coffee waiting. Luna ran ahead and slid into the seat beside Elena. "Can we get pie first?" "That's not how dinner works," Damian said, sliding in across from them. "It should be." Elena laughed. She's got a point. They ordered dinner, not lemon herb chicken, not the ghost meal, just regular food eaten together, while Bonnie watched with barely concealed satisfaction and the jukebox played songs from a decade nobody remembered. And when Luna reached across the table to steal a fry from Damian's plate, and Elena laughed at something stupid he said, and Bonnie refilled their coffee without asking, Damian realized something. The booth wasn't empty anymore, not because he'd replaced what was lost, but because he'd made room for what was found. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Outside, the first real snowstorm of winter was beginning. Inside Maple Hearth Diner, under fluorescent lights that buzzed and flickered, 3 people sat together in a corner booth. A man who'd learned that survival and living weren't the same thing. A woman who'd learned that failure wasn't final. A child who'd learned that love didn't disappear. It just changed shape. They weren't perfect. Their lives weren't fixed. The grief didn't vanish, and the fear didn't disappear. But they were there, together, laughing over bad coffee and good pie, and the kind of small, ordinary moments that make life worth the struggle. And in a booth that used to hold ghosts, there was finally room for the living. The empty chair was no longer empty, not because anyone was forgotten, but because healing had made room for love to return.